In a pyro is learning how to improvise. That's your number one skill, right? Because so many things get thrown at you, whether it's weather or sponsor schedule changes or not having all the product you're supposed to have on the show, or not having the correct equipment, or they sent you a firing panel with a dead battery. All kinds of fun stuff like that just comes up that's not really within your control, but it's your job to figure it out, right? If you don't figure it out, you don't have a show. So let me start out by just introducing myself. My name is Brian Teeling. I'm the operations manager at American Fireworks Company. We're based in Hudson, Ohio, not too far from here, about a 4-hour drive. American Fireworks Company, we are a sister company to American Wholesale Fireworks. I know you've heard that name a lot in the last 3 days because we are one of the primary sponsors of Cobra-Con. We get real involved with everything they do here because you guys that attend Cobra-Con, you're the basically the heart and soul of our business. So we definitely enjoy being here. I already said that we're headquartered in Hudson, Ohio. We've actually been around for 120 years. I know that's hard to believe, but the owners of the company now are the 5th generation fireworks people. And they started in Hudson and clear back in the early 1900s. We're a regional fireworks display. We're not a Zambelli or a Pyrotechnico where we travel all 50 states. We operate in about 10 states, mostly in the Midwest, and we produce over 700 shows a year. The week of the 4th of July, within a 9-day period, we typically have about 200 to 225 shows. And my main job, other than to shoot some of those shows, is to coordinate that giant mess. It's a logistical nightmare, coordinating that many shows, and especially when you are involving 10 states. It's really difficult.
How many of your shows are on the 4th?
On the 4th of July, we peak out at about 60 crews. So we run about 40 out of our headquarters. Then we got a couple satellite locations where we run 5 to 10 out of those. So yeah, it's a big undertaking.
So like the next day, are they out of work now or what?
The people who are shooting our shows? That's a good question. So we have, believe it or not, shooting 700 displays. We only have 6 full-time shooters other than myself. I shoot also. I'm the operations manager, but I also shoot. We have 6 other full-time guys. And then all the rest of them are all part-time. We have about 350 part-time shooters. And those guys, it's such a big range. We have guys that only want to shoot 1 show a year on the 4th of July because it's a tradition. They just want to shoot fireworks on the 4th of July. Then we have other part-time guys that shoot 30 to 40 shows a year. So there's a big range there. We're also a 1.3G wholesaler. How many of you guys in here are 1.3 people, and how many are 1.3? A majority. Then the rest of you are 1.4. Is anybody 1.3 and 1.4? Okay, good.
1.4 Pro.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is going to, be in reference to 1.3, but it can be applied to 1.4 as well. We shoot primarily 1.3 shows. But we do incorporate a lot of pro products, especially single shots and slices. And everything I talk about will pertain to both. Personally, I've been in the fireworks industry 40 years. Started doing this back when I was, honestly, when I was like 15, 16 years old. And I was running around American Fireworks just helping out anywhere I can because I got the fireworks bug when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, and once you get it, you can never get rid of it, and I ended up turning it into a career. I typically produce about 30 shows a year. I figure I'm well over 1,000 at this point. I have extensive experience in shooting pretty much in any type of venue you can think of. I love traditional sites. Those are the easiest, right? Like last night where you get to go out on a nice flat open field and set up your show. Those are amazing. But I've also done stadiums, bridges, rooftops, barges, piers. Pretty much anywhere you can shoot fireworks, I've shot them at some point. I like to consider myself an avid learner. I mean, even though I came here this week to present, I've been in every time slot that there's been classes available, I've been sitting in on those classes. I think it's really important as a pyrotechnician that you never stop learning. There's always more you can learn. And today, in this presentation, if you could come out of here with even a couple of useful things, it's worthwhile. To me, that's the way I always look at every class I sit in on. If I can get a couple of useful points, hey, that was time well spent. All right? What we're going to do here, I'm going to talk about the theme of the class is adapting to the unexpected, but I like to step back one step before we talk about that and talk about preventing the unexpected. Because if you can prevent the unexpected, then you don't have to deal with the unexpected, right? So we want to do everything we can to prevent it. Then we'll talk about adapting, and then we'll save some time at the end for a Q&A. In terms of questions, you can stop me anytime and ask me a question. If it's on your mind, stop me and ask, all right? I teach a lot of classes for firefighters and for our shooters and other company shooters. And quite honestly, the best ones, the most successful ones are the ones where people ask the most questions. Because I'm going to present things that are on my mind, but I'm not going to think of everything. And you're going to think of stuff that I'm not going to. And when I say ask a question, it doesn't even have to be a question. You can interject a point that I've overlooked. And it can be opinion or it can be code. I don't care. In terms of what I say in here today, I'm going to give you a lot of my opinion, but I'm also going to tell you some things that are absolute code that you should be adhering to. Okay? 1123 if you're doing 1.3, 1126 for approximate, 160 if you're doing flames. All right? Okay, so moving forward. Goals. Every show we should have all of us in here. I don't care if you do 1.3, 1.4, little 100 Q shows or 4,000 Q pyro musicals. We all should have the same three goals, in my opinion. The first is to ensure the overall safety of yourself, any of your crew members, any fire department officials that may be on your site, security personnel, and most importantly, your crowd. Number one is your crowd. You know what I do every time I'm setting up a show? I think about my crowd, and I always picture the family that's sitting on a blanket in the crowd, and they've got a stroller with a baby in it, and they've got a couple little toddlers running around. And I think about that because it's my job to make sure that those babies and toddlers don't get hot ashes on them, don't get hit with flying debris or anything. My job is to protect the crowd, okay? Number two, we all have this goal. This is why we do it, right? Produce a spectacular display. We want to hear the crowd roar at the end of the show. That's what keeps us coming back, right? And working the long days in the hot sun or in the rain or whatever. It's those moments where you know you made somebody happy and you provided them kind of an exhilarating experience. That's what's important. I always kind of look at it like I want to try and create some scenes that if a picture's taken of them, it's something I would want to hang on my wall. This is a picture from a show that I did in downtown Pittsburgh on their light up night about 10 years ago. And this, like, you know, I've got pictures from pyro musicals where the entire frame is full of comets and shells breaking above it and stuff like that. But that's what a lot of fireworks pictures look like. I'm looking for something that, you know, where it's a, wow, that was absolutely spectacular. And I've always loved this picture, and it's one of my favorites of any show I've ever been involved with. The last goal that we should all have in mind is we want 100% of our product to fire, right? How many people every show get 100% of the product to fire? I mean, it's almost impossible, right? The exception is, does anybody still hand fire? Yeah. Every once in a while I do, just because I get the bug, I get the itch to hand fire, because that's where we all start. Well, not anymore. A lot of people now are starting, they have a Cobra system or whatever right off the bat. But, you know, from my era, probably from Jeff's era, we all started by hand firing shells with road flares. And, you know, if you do that, one of the benefits to it is almost always you're going to fire 100% of your product. Yeah. Now, is it going to look as good? Probably not. But, you know, to most spectators, they don't even know the difference, quite honestly. You know the difference, they don't. So those are our goals. How do we get there? I already told you before we talked about adapting, let's talk about preventing, because preventing is just as important as adapting. Preventing the unexpected. I may have made this word up. I'm not sure if it's a real word or not.
Foreseeability.
Is it a real word?
I feel like it could be.
I don't think it is.
It is now.
See?
It would be arguable.
Yeah, oh, it would never fly in Scrabble,
It's
for sure.
SEI. It's SEI, I feel it. No.
Well, see, here's the thing. Foresee is a real word.
Yeah.
And ability is a real word. I'm just not sure if it's quite legal to put them together. However,
Too easy.
this is a really, really, really important word for me. And in every training session, this is the first thing that I put heavy emphasis on. Foreseeability. What does that mean in the fireworks world? What that means to me is every single step of setting up my show, I have always thinking, what can go wrong? Is this angle where it's going to hit that tree branch? Do I have too much wind to angle the mortars that direction? It's going to carry the debris too far? Am I going to hit that power line? Your mind has to always be thinking. I know you like to listen to music while you're setting up. I know you like to chat with your crew while you're setting up. You can do those things, but in the back of your mind, you better be checking yourself all the time. What could possibly go wrong? And if there's any doubt about any step in your setup that something can go wrong, you better correct it. Don't take risks in this industry, okay? If you take risks, even if it's a calculated risk, at some point it's going to bite you in the ass. I can guarantee it. All right? If you do enough fireworks shows, it's going to bite you in the ass.
So define a risk.
What's that?
Define a risk.
Yes. Well, define it.
Yeah. What?
Uh,
I mean, so have you taken risks that have bitten you?
Dang, that's a loaded question. Of course. I've been doing this for 40 years,
Yeah.
and early on, absolutely. I'll give you one example that had a really bad outcome that could have been really a lot worse. So, for anybody, was anybody shooting like 25 years ago? Okay. What was real typical on a shoot site 25 years ago that you would never see today? Reloading. Bingo. If you shot 25 years ago, you were reloading. And if you're not familiar with that, that means if you were lucky,
your company sent out 2 racks of each diameter shell size you had, and then you had big wooden boxes that you put everything else in. And you had guys who shot, and you had guys who reloaded. Okay?
The box.
So, the possibility of making a mistake is high because the site is smoky, it's dark,
Tubes are hot.
you got a lot of hot debris falling everywhere, and you're trying to hurry, which is the worst part of it. So, on one particular occasion, very early in my career, we were firing 8-inch. We had approximately 28-inch on the display. We had 4 mortars. And they were buried in the ground, thankfully. However, that meant each mortar was going to get loaded 5 times. Somehow, in that process, and I take full responsibility because looking back, if I had to do over again, I would have been the one loading the 8-inch. Your most experienced person should be doing the thing that's the most critical, right? I could train anybody to pull a cap off of a fuse and lighting tip. So I did not have the most experienced person loading the 8-inch, and an 8-inch got loaded upside down.
Oh.
Yes. So the result was about an 8-foot crater in the earth, and we were using aluminum 8-inch mortars. So it blew all 4 8-inch mortars into shreds, shrapnel, as you would say, and a lot of dirt, a lot of shrapnel flying. There was 5 people on the site, and we all got hit by dirt. Nobody got hit by shrapnel.
Thank God.
And yes, we were very fortunate. We found a piece of razor sharp aluminum this long about 200 feet away after we tore down and we were walking the site. So that's an example where I took a risk by putting someone who was inexperienced loading 8-inch shells.
Right. Not
Not a good idea. But, you know, I was young and I didn't know better. So always think about what can go wrong. That's an example. That's kind of an extreme example, obviously. But when you make a mistake with 1.3G fireworks, you can make a big mistake, and there can be severe injuries. And I can tell you right now, you can look at the statistics, and there's fatalities every single summer from mistakes that are made. 1.4, not so much. I mean, if you make a mistake with 1.4, you might have an injury or insignificant property damage, but you're not going to have anything serious. But still, you don't want anything, right? You want it to be perfect. Going back real quick to 1.3, we're based in Ohio. Ohio is one of the strictest fireworks states in the United States in terms of laws on display sites. And the reason for that is we had a fatal accident in 1998 that involved a company that's no longer in business, and had their shooter used foreseeability and even just some common sense, that accident would have never happened. So what they did is they used freestanding racks that they secured to metal rebar that they drove into the ground, and then they secured the racks to the rebar with zip ties.
Oh, that's strong.
What could go wrong, right? Plastic zip ties. If you've been on a 1.3 display site, there is hot crap raining down the entire show. So it was inevitable at some point, maybe not that show, maybe not that night, but it was inevitable with using that method that something bad was going to happen eventually, and it did. A 5-inch rack flopped over on the ground, shot a 5-inch shell into the crowd. Remember I said about talking about there's always kids in the crowd. Not that kids' lives are any more valuable than adults' lives, but a 12-year-old girl lost her life that night. So, and you know, that changed fireworks forever in the state of Ohio, because then we immediately became, you know, we have a checklist, we have, you know, an AHJ that's looking over your shoulder basically from the time you drive on the site to the time you drive off. And that's not a bad thing, you know, it really isn't, because it's going to prevent that from happening in the future. So foreseeability is really important. Keep that in your mind. That's a word I want you to remember. And when you're setting up your shows, your mind should always be grinding. What could possibly go wrong here? And if there is something that can go wrong, let's take corrective action. Okay. At least a month out from your show, you should be doing a detailed site map. If you work for a company, they probably do it for you, right? How many people shoot shows in states that don't require a permit? Anybody? Just one? There are states that don't require permits. Like right around us, I told you Ohio's the most strict, one of the most strict states. We have Pennsylvania to our east, no permits. We have Michigan to our north, very rarely permits, occasionally maybe. We have Kentucky to our south, no permits.
Commercial you do.
What's that?
Commercial you're required to.
Where?
Kentucky.
Are you required?
Yeah. It's a
That one slipped by me.
form you mail to the state, they don't mail anything back, but you are required to show
Okay.
insurance.
Do you have to submit a site map?
It's more or less a form that you get the judge detective, the fire chief, or the mayor, one of the three to sign.
Okay.
As long as the map, the drawing meets their requirement,
Okay.
it's fine. Like,
Okay.
I hand drawn stuff, I've drawn stuff up on computers,
Uh-huh.
but it don't have to be super detailed.
Okay. Well, you know, we only do a few shows in Kentucky, but I honestly didn't think there was permitting in Kentucky. So I learned something today. That's awesome. So 1 month out, a detailed site map should look something like this. And I'll go over each component that should be there. And even if the place you're shooting doesn't require a site map, I recommend having one anyways. Even if you're going to do a show in your neighborhood for your neighbors, I would put this together. Why?
If something happens, it shows that you've tried to cover your ass.
Yep.
In case something happens, something goes wrong, you have covered your ass, because you're going to show that I did everything according to NFPA code. And that's what you want to be able to show.
Right.
Okay? One thing to always keep in mind, you're not going to want to hear me say this, but I'm going to say it. All right? I tell our shooters this all the time. If something happens on your site and there's an accident and somebody gets injured, your firing site becomes a crime scene. Don't want to hear that, do you?
No.
But it's the truth. And you know, it's going to vary state to state, of course, but your firing site becomes a crime scene. And in Ohio, if something happens, they will pull you off the site immediately, the fire department will, and you're not even allowed to touch anything until the state fire marshal's office comes in and starts their investigation. So always start with the site map. Okay, these are the things in considering the site map. Google Earth is an amazing tool. We used to have to do what he said, like what you said you do in Kentucky. Sometimes you just sketch a map, right? That used to be, I mean, when I started this, we used to have to go out to the site, literally either use a laser rangefinder or a wheel, and we just drew up a map. And that was the best you could do. But now you got Google Earth. Make sure you use the most current image, because if you're not careful, you can have an image that's 3 or 4 years old, and the site could be completely different, okay? Provide the product diameters and the associated NFPA required distances. Designate the firing site and its associated fallout zone. Provide a security line to be enforced to ensure that the fallout zone is not encroached on during the display. And designate the viewing area for the spectators. Last thing is specify allowable parking areas. We'll get into some of these in a little bit more detail. Oh, also specify any special hazards. So going back to the map that I had up here before, down here you can see it says that this is 1.5 inch to 5 inch product by NFPA code that requires 105 to 350 feet of separation distance. We have the firing site marked here. We do not, the person who created this map did not put the fallout zone on there. Why? It's not required on this particular map. Why is the fallout zone not really necessary? Anybody know? Because the secured perimeter, this red line, this red dashed line, is what we're going to tell the sponsor has to be secured during the display. So if that secured perimeter is bigger than what the fallout zone would be, no reason to put a fallout zone, right? So the fallout zone would max out at 350 feet, and you can see that we're far above that on all 4 sides of the secured area. All right? And then
How do they secure that? I mean, I guess that's up to the sponsor?
that's up to the sponsor to figure out. Yeah.
What if they come back and say, well, we don't have the personnel to secure that?
You have to negotiate, and you have to use common sense. Okay, so like in this particular case, you've got a big, thick wooded area. What's on the other side of it is the key.
Yeah.
Is there a bunch of houses right here, and are there paths through these woods? Because if there's residences over here and there's paths in these woods, I would be somewhat concerned about it.
Yeah.
If there isn't, then I wouldn't even worry about it. What's the chances somebody's going to be in this wooded area during your show? This is one of the places where it would be a judgment call on your part in the part of the HJ. All right. Down in this area, you're going to absolutely demand that they have people to secure this part of the fallout zone, because you know that you always. What does every person that go to a fireworks show want to do? They want to get as goddamn close as they can get, and they don't even care if it jeopardizes their safety. They don't care. Yes.
How do you deal with security not understanding the importance of your perimeter?
I mean,
Do you
Talk to the
talk
sponsor.
to security? Because
You-
that's
you-
what I usually do, is just say, I have to go tell them
Yeah.
before anything.
the answer is you can talk to security, but what I would normally do is I would tell the fire department, this is kind of on you. I've got to get my show set up, and I'm going to focus on that. Can you make sure that the security people are all on the same page in terms of what the expectations are and what we need to do to prevent people from walking into the firing site?
You want contact with the main organizer too. That's the
Absolutely.
biggest deal.
Yeah,
because you
usually I
gotta
don't want to
know
bother them
We're,
though.
we're going to talk about that in a few minutes,
Okay.
actually, about, it's a collaborative effort is really the best explanation, because every one of these events that you do a fireworks show for, unless it's just a neighborhood show, has an organizer. It's usually a Parks and Recs department or something of that nature, and they should be involved with every step of the planning, and especially when it comes to securing the site, because it is their responsibility. It's not your responsibility, okay? Okay, preventing the unexpected, about 2 weeks out. This is something that I highly recommend. How many people have shot a show and never stepped foot on the site until the day of the show? I do it all the time.
Mine's out on water.
Yeah, well, unless you're Jesus,
I'm
you
not
can't
Jesus.
walk on
Walk on the water?
I do it all the time. I'll be the first to admit, and I'm not proud of that, but I do a lot of shows, and it's almost impossible. I do a lot of shows out of state, and it's almost impossible for me to, your best case scenario is when you can do a show year after year after year, and you become familiar with the site, and you get to develop a relationship with the fire department and the sponsor, and that makes your life easy, right? So, but you want to walk that site if possible. Ideally, what you mentioned, ideally, you should have the sponsor of the event and also the HJ, if there's going to be an HJ involved. Well, I do a lot of shows in Michigan. Michigan Fire, anybody here from Michigan? Michigan fire departments don't give a crap, right? Except for maybe Detroit and a couple random ones. Most of the shows I do in Michigan, I don't even see the fire department. I never see the fire department. If I'm lucky, they may come when we shoot. So if they don't have involvement, then it's just up to you and the AHJ, all right? Discuss security before, during, and after the show. Not just during, but before and after also. Here's the thing about before. First of all, NFPA code question, how many feet are you supposed to have separation for while you're setting up your show?
100 feet.
100 feet, good job. 100 feet all the way around. Now, some fire departments, they want the entire fallout zone. Unreasonable, no reason to do that, but some fire departments require that. Before the show, I usually tell the sponsor, unless it's a high traffic area, we will handle policing the firing site during the show. During setup. Don't worry about it. However, you and solely you are responsible during and after the show. After the show is just as important, okay? Until you clear the site, there's still a possibility of something firing. And you want the security of the perimeter to stay. I usually, when I meet with my fire department and my sponsor, I tell them I want the security perimeter kept until I tell you to release your security people. You tell them when it's okay, all right? Don't put a time on it. Don't say give us 15 minutes or give us 5 minutes or whatever. Just tell them I'll let you know, all right? Any questions about that? That's an important one, it really is.
You're fired, you're good.
Okay, discuss potential weather contingencies, avoid surprises. I've gotten some bad surprises over the years, and they almost always have to do with weather. So talk about things when you meet ahead of time, even if it's the day of the show. Talk about what are we going to do if it's raining? What are we going to do if a storm comes through? Okay, what are we going to do if the wind is higher than we'd like it to be? Talk about those things ahead of time, hash it out with the sponsor and the AHJ. Discuss your method of communication with the sponsor and the AHJ on the day of the show. And here's another important one. Always establish an arrival time with your AHJ and your sponsor. If your AHJ requires them to be on the site before you're allowed to set up, you don't want to get there. Like, I know when I get there, I'm ready to go, man. I want to open the back of the truck and I want to get going. I'm not messing around. So make sure that the AHJ is going to be there when you get there. Make sure the sponsor doesn't keep you from setting up your show. How can they do that? It's happened to me a bunch of times. It's my own fault. But I finally learned. What?
Not having the area cleared.
Not having it cleared, or like you're on a baseball field or something and you got all locked gates and you can't get on the damn site. So communicate with your sponsor. I've been held up for over an hour before because I couldn't get on my site. So always communicate ahead of time.
The parade didn't end on time.
Oh, parades are a whole nother. I actually got to be a part of a parade once.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm doing a show down in Colonial Beach, Virginia. And they had a parade in the middle of the day, and they tell me about it. How am I supposed to know you have a parade in the middle of the day? But at the end of the day, it's my fault for not asking, right? So I'm trying to get to my site, but there's a damn parade going on. And I'm like, how much longer is this parade gonna last? And they're like, oh, this goes on for about 45 minutes. I'm like, I cannot wait that long to get to my site. We're at the end of a pier, and it was supposed to be rainy. So I'm like, I'm really anxious to get on my site. I'm like, is there anything you can do? Fire chief's like, let's just jump you in the line. You just go down with everybody else, and when you get to Cedar Street, you peel off. So here I am
Right to the crowd.
in my firework, 26-foot Ryder rental truck,
Oh, geez.
going down the street with a marching band in front of me and a float behind me, waving out the window. Hey, we're the fireworks company, guys. Hey, great to be a part of your parade.
Oh, where's the candy?
That's a true story.
That's
I didn't make that up. If you do this long enough, all kinds of weird stuff like that happens to you. 1 week out from the show, try to prepare for weather contingencies. I don't know about you guys, but I start looking at weather apps a week out. Not 1, not 2, usually 3 or 4. And I just like to drive myself crazy because a week out means nothing because it's going to change 3 or 4 times. But it will, a lot of times, give you a clue if there is some type of significant front coming and you know you're going to have some type of weather to deal with. So monitor those weather apps. If there's any possibility of rain the day of your show, you got to prepare ahead of time. The first thing is adjust your schedule, right? Because it's going to take you a lot longer to set your show up. And you don't want to be setting your show up to the last minute or even not getting it all set up, because that's the worst position you can be in. I always personally, I want to have, if my show's at 10 o'clock, I want to be done setting up at 6 o'clock. I want 4 hours to sit around, just chat with my crew, eat, and and relax. Don't put yourself in a position where you're still dropping cues at 5 minutes before the show. Yes?
Yeah, my goal is always to be set up while there's still the sun up.
Yeah, that's a real good one. Yeah, not doing things in dark. That's foreseeability, man. That's like, because doing the crap in the dark stinks. I've done it before. It's you got the nice headlamps and everything, and that helps a lot, but man, that's not a good situation to be in. Here's a key. Anything that you can waterproof, if you think you're going to be dealing with rain, anything you can waterproof ahead of time, do it. Do it. Save yourself some time on the site, man. That's important. Anything you can't waterproof ahead of time, make sure you have good materials to waterproof it that day. Whether it's bags, sheeting, saran wrap, whatever your choice is. One of the beautiful things about being a pyrotechnician is there's no right way to do it. Things like that, like waterproofing, there's no right way to do it. There's ways that are better than others, but there's no right way. You figure out what works best for you, and you do that.
So when
Yes.
Carpet guard, y'all ever heard of that?
Oh,
What is it?
Carpet mask.
Carpet guard.
Yeah,
Carpet mask.
Carpet
It's
mask.
Carpet tape.
Carpet protection film.
It's
is another way
3
to
foot
put it.
wide, plastic sheet that's adhesive back. You can cover your guns in 5 minutes.
Really?
It's fantastic.
It has adhesive back?
It has adhesive
What's
back.
its primary use?
Put on the carpet
Carpet
to
runner.
protect when they're doing construction.
Put it on as a runner.
I've never
They
heard
sell
that.
It protects,
in like 1 foot and
contractors
3
in your
foot.
house working, you can walk on that and it'll get your carpet dirty.
Big roll.
But it's 36 inches wide or.
Where has this been my whole life? How have I never heard of this before?
It's great.
Yeah,
It's carpet pack or carpet.
You can shoot through it.
You
Okay.
get it at Home Depot.
All right.
It's like $30 a roll for a 36 inch
I'm
wide.
gonna try that out. I learned another thing today. That was a good one.
You pull it over the top of the racks and it just seals down.
Okay.
We've had thunderstorms go through with an inch of rain and shot 95,
That sounds
97%.
beautiful. That sounds beautiful. I'm gonna try it.
Shoots right through it.
Right. What's the thickness? Anybody know?
It's, I wanna
5,
say
10
it's like-
mils.
It's really.
5 or 10 mils? It can't be
No,
that thick.
no, not that thick.
It's 5, 6 mil, yeah.
Is it really that thick?
It's beautiful.
Well, I guess
Okay.
3 more mil, but yeah.
All right, let's keep moving because I always talk too much and I chew up the time too fast. Pack a canopy or canopies to work under if necessary. You don't want to be trying to do this stuff out in the rain. You've got to keep your product dry. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. That's pretty much it for preventing the unexpected. Now let's talk about adapting to the unexpected. There's 4 areas we're going to talk about. Site challenges, weather challenges, program changes by the sponsor, and crowd control issues. Unexpected site challenges. First one, how many people has this ever happened to? Me, many times. Overgrown site. You get there and the stuff's this tall.
They didn't know.
And yeah, again, you know, you like to think that your sponsor would know that you can't set up a fireworks show in 3-foot tall overgrowth, but not everybody thinks about those type of things. So if you don't do a site walk, always ask that question: will the site be cleared and mowed? You do not want to pull up on your site and see this. Because number one, it sucks to set up in it,
And it's gonna burn.
and it's going to catch on fire. You are going to have a major fire during your show. The crowd will probably love it. However, it's not a great way to go. The next one, sloping.
If you came into that, would you say we're not shooting? Yeah.
I would say,
Okay.
no, I wouldn't say we're not shooting. I would say
Yeah.
we're not shooting there.
We've had a
Okay.
mow.
We're going to have to figure something else out.
Right.
Because even if if the sponsor says, oh, well, I've got maintenance guys here, we'll come and brush hog that real quick.
No.
Guess what? It's still going to catch on fire.
All that
I mean, it's going to be
debris is there.
better to set up in, but it's still going to catch on fire. All right, we don't want that. Sloping or extremely rough terrain. Rough terrain sucks too. Your job is to make sure that every piece of product on your site is extremely stable, right? Can't tip over, doesn't rock, so that it can shoot at a wrong angle. And rough terrain is not conducive to that. So again, if you didn't do your research, you didn't walk the site, now all of a sudden you come and that site's sloping to the point where you cannot get your product stable, or if it's rough terrain and you cannot get stable product, you're gonna have to try and find somewhere else to shoot the show. A building near the shoot site. This happens all the time. It all depends on what type of building it is, right? And more importantly, what type of building it is what?
Inhabited or
What
not.
construction is it?
What's on the roof? Yes. What kind of construction, and primarily what's on the roof. Can you shoot right next to a building? Absolutely, as long as it's, somebody said unoccupied. As long as it's unoccupied, you can shoot. I can be here and there can be a building right there. I used to do a show that I shot 10 feet from the front door of the town's police department. That is absolutely true. And the fire department didn't like it, but the mayor insisted on the show being in this area, and we did it for many years and we never had an issue. But metal roofs are great. Obviously, you're not going to have any type of problem there. Asphalt shingles are great. You're not going to have any problems there. Rubber membranes,
Oh, yeah.
real bad.
Tennis courts love them.
Real bad. You don't want to shoot close to a rubber membrane, but there is an exception to that. I'll talk about that in a second. Or wood shaker shingles. You don't see wood shaker shingles much anymore, but they're still out there. There's you'll have the historic buildings that have them and things like that. But I shoot 2 shows a year on a site where I shoot 75 feet from an elementary school. Flat roof, rubber membrane. I agree to do it because the fire department agrees to go up on the roof 15 minutes before the show, spray the roof down, and then they keep 3 or 4 guys up there during the show in case something hot falls on the roof. Okay? So you just have to use your judgment there. Is it occupied or unoccupied, of course? NFPA code says you can never shoot with an occupied building within your fallout zone. Special hazard near the shoot site or fallout zone. Anybody ever show up to their site and see something like this? Son of a bitch, what did they do to me now? Not only is there a well head, but there's 2 big storage tanks right there. So, not a great place to shoot fireworks. So, again, the situation, you know, you could overlook this on a Google map. You won't overlook it if you walk the site, is the bottom line at the end of the day. What do special hazards, by the way, what does code require you, how does the code require you to treat them? Double the distance,
Yeah.
absolutely. So instead of 70 feet per inch fallout, you need 140 feet per inch. All right, what other special hazards are there?
Hospitals, prisons.
Hospitals, prisons, elderly care centers. That's pretty much gas stations, anything with bulk fuel storage. Okay.
Gas station, unless the tanks are above ground, is not a special hazard.
If they're,
If the tanks.
it's not considered a special hazard if the tanks,
are not above ground.
really?
They're underground.
Is that true?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
I sit on the committee. I know.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, as long as the tanks are buried, not a special hazard.
Okay.
Tanks above ground, or if they do propane refill.
Right.
Then you got a problem.
Right. Okay, thank you for contributing that, I appreciate it. I did not know that. All right, see? I've learned like 3 things already today. I'm learning more than you guys. Look at me. This is crazy. This is a common one because what happens a lot of times at these festivals, they get a lot more attendance than they anticipate, and all of a sudden they run out of parking.
Yes.
And they're like, oh crap, now what do we do? And they just start parking people everywhere, or the people just start parking everywhere on their own. Either way, it's bad. You've got fuel tanks on the cars, bad. You also run the risk of dropping hot debris on the cars, and then the next day, your company gets 35 calls for insurance claims for paint jobs on cars. And guess who's at fault? You are. So just be aware of that. Okay, weather challenges. Rain. We're going to talk a lot about rain because everybody, if you shoot fireworks long enough, it won't take long before you have a rainy event. There's basically 3 reasons accidents happen on fireworks sites. Product gets wet, in my opinion, is the most common one. Operator error and defective product. All right? The most common one, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't have any statistics to back it up, but I'm going to tell you from 40 years of experience and from overseeing 60 crews, the number 1 reason there's accidents on fireworks sites is because product got wet. All right? Where does the lift charge sit on everything?
In the bottom.
In the bottom, whether it's a cake or a shell. What part is most likely to get wet if it rains? It's going to be the bottom. And guess what happens once that lift charge gets wet? It does not do what it's supposed to do. It does not lift the shell or the effect out of the tube or mortar. It's going to most likely either plop it on the ground or it's not going to go anywhere and your shell is going to detonate inside the mortar. Okay? And now all of a sudden you have a problem. So keeping product wet is absolutely priority 1. Never attempt to light anything or use anything in a show that has gotten wet at any point. The fact, if it got wet yesterday and your show got canceled and it dried out in the meantime, that does not mean it's okay to shoot. It's not going to perform the way it's supposed to. Do not shoot it. Cake products and single effect holders, what we do at our company, the easiest thing to do is to use trash bags and just put them inside of a trash bag, gather the end, run the igniter out the end, gather them, tape it or tie it, whichever you prefer. Now that product could sit out there for a week through 3 inches of rain and it's still going to be good to shoot. Okay? So that's the best way to handle cakes and effect holders, slices, anything of that matter. Mortar racks, I like your guys' idea. I'm actually gonna try that out very soon and see how that works. We use sheet plastic, 4 mil. I usually go 4 mil max. I don't think that sheet plastic of anything thickness is going to affect 4-inch, 5-inch, or 6-inch shells, the height that they get. But if you have 2.5-inch, I believe that will, if you start getting above 4 mil, I think it will affect the height a little bit. And you don't want to ever affect the height of your product. You want it to perform at the height it's desired or designed to perform at. Yes?
You can go up to a sheet of plywood. A 3-inch shell will go through a sheet.
It'll go through it, but how high is it going to
Yeah,
go?
Maintains height.
Plastic's not gonna affect
Maintains
the height.
height.
It's gonna go right.
You think it really does, a 2.5-inch?
I went to my training for, yes, it does, it maintains,
Okay.
it maintains height.
Yeah, we do it
I'm
at our
surprised.
clubs. We do it in our club event, every event we show that.
Even a 2.5-inch?
Yeah.
Nice,
It pulls
okay,
right through.
all right.
And
Hey.
it's a perfect 3-inch hole too, where it's almost.
Right. Okay, some things about using sheet plastic. Number one, points of emphasis that I tell my crew is you can't secure it with just a staple gun, because if you have any wind at all, it's just gonna rip it right apart, and your sheet plastic's gonna flip over, and your product's gonna get wet. What we do is we cut these little cardboard squares, and we use the cardboard squares and we staple through those. There's other ways you can do it. A lot of people do it differently than we do. This is how we do it. Another point of emphasis is to keep everything secured low. Don't secure it up here, because if you secure it up here, you've got all this loose plastic down here that the wind can get under. And if wind can get under it, it's gonna eventually pull it off. I can guarantee it, okay? So keep it tight, keep it low.
Do you put your module and everything underneath there, wires and
Yes.
everything, and how do you,
Yep.
I guess you have to be very cognizant to not to staple on top of them.
You do. Almost always, if we have a big show and there's a lot of igniters and we have to plastic, and invariably when we do continuity check, we end up replacing a couple of E-match because they get stapled through.
So if you don't wanna use staples, you can use pallet wrap.
Yeah,
Pallet wrap, it takes 2
Sure.
guys to apply it. You lay the plastic over just the same, and you run pallet wrap
Sure.
around your pod. It works, it holds great, even in heavy
yeah,
winds.
sure, that's a good point. Yep.
Pallet wrap.
Several people have already mentioned it. This question always comes up with new shooters. Can I go ahead and shoot my show through the plastic? The answer is absolutely. And if there's any chance of rain whatsoever at showtime, I highly encourage that. This is an important one. A lot of 1-3 product comes with plastic around it from the manufacturer in China. Never rely on that plastic to keep your product dry, because it's not gonna happen, all right? It looks good that they put that on there, right? That's real thoughtful. Thank you for waterproofing my product. It's not waterproof. I can guarantee it. Okay. Thunderstorms and lightning. I'm going to try and speed up here because we're running out of time, and there's some important stuff that I do want to get to. Never shoot a fireworks display during thunderstorm or with any lightning in the area. It's just a bad idea. There's deaths every summer from people who either get struck by lightning or get hit by a tree that gets struck by lightning that then falls on them. So you don't want to be out there. You don't want your crowd out there. You don't want anybody out there if there's lightning. Under these circumstances, you should always delay, postpone, or cancel your show. It just depends on how long the lightning is going to last, and if you have the potential to postpone it to the following night. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Always monitor your weather apps. Look at that radar. It could be a real narrow front that thing's going to blow through in 20 minutes, and then you're going to be fine. However, I can tell you, in recent years, safety people, whether it's fire or police, have become way more cautious. And a lot of times, when there's a storm, even if it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, if there's a bad storm coming through, they shut the whole event down and they send everybody home. I've had it happen to me multiple times in the last 5 years. all right? If it's a 4th of July fireworks display that's not tied to an actual event, they'll shoo everybody out of there, but everybody will come back and you'll still be able to shoot.
If you do get canceled or whatever, postponed, what do you do with the product? Do you stay out there with it all night, or do you unload all the boarders, or?
That question, it depends. If you have a rain date that's the next day, you absolutely are not gonna unload the show.
So you're gonna stay out there with it?
I tell fire people and sponsors, the absolute most dangerous thing you can ask me to do is to unload a show.
Right.
An electric show, to unload it
Yeah, definitely.
in the dark or in the rain, whatever, is the most dangerous thing to do. It is. That's that's just being honest. If our company, if it's postponed to the next night, we by contract require the sponsor to provide overnight security till we return the next day. Somebody, and when we say security, it has to be somebody who has some authority that
Yeah.
carries a gun and can protect the product. All right?
Okay.
Wind, this is one that comes up all the time, and this is the trickiest one. All right? How much is too much?
Whatever the AHJ says.
Yeah, but you know, you say that, and you're right to an extent, because you have to advocate for yourself sometimes, you know, and sometimes you've got to, you know, I'm not saying that you argue with them, but you can present valid points and you can do things to hopefully make sure you can shoot your show, right? So it depends, and it depends on the size product you're shooting. It depends on where the crowd is. It depends on what other hazards around. It depends on the wind speed, all right?
I don't know if anybody else, I've had the AHA tell me many times, you're the expert,
Yeah,
What do you think?
Yeah.
what do you think? And I'm
I
like,
love
what do you
that.
think? You're the
Yeah, I
expert,
love
you know,
that.
Me too.
you know.
I love that. And this is something that you can take away from this seminar. This is my guidelines that I teach to my crews that I've developed from my experience of what I think is reasonable. Wind. Light winds, 0 to 10 miles per hour. Do you need to do anything?
No.
Most likely not, right? We want some wind because we want the smoke to clear out so they can see our beautiful fireworks. So 0 to 10 miles per hour, you should be good to go in almost every situation, all right? There may be some exceptions, but most situations, you're gonna be good. Moderate winds, 11 to 18 miles per hour. Now you gotta start thinking. Right? Foreseeability. What can go wrong here if debris starts traveling a little bit further than we want it to travel? And it probably is going to when you're between 11 and 18 miles per hour. So now, at this point, we need to evaluate whether it's going to be safe to do the show, and then if not, is there some type of modification we can make to make it safe to do the show? High winds, anything 19 and above, I say you probably should not be shooting the show. But there are exceptions to where you can. All right, I'm going to show you one in a minute.
Like my lake.
Your own lake. If you're on a barge.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a good example. Okay, moving to firing site. This is a show that I do in Frankenmuth, Michigan. If you're from Michigan, you know Frankenmuth, Michigan, right? So this is Zenders of Frankenmuth. They have events all year long. This is a tourist town, man. And they always put a big tent up in the back of their parking lot. And then we fire all the shows from this waste treatment plant across the other side of the river. Now, one particular show that I did there was for their Snowfest, which is in the end of January, so it's wintertime, and you get some nasty weather. And we had winds that were up 20 miles per hour, gusting up to 25. And guess what? Blowing towards the crowd. So there's no way I'm shooting that show from this. And this is one of those situations where the fire department doesn't even get involved at all. I don't even see the fire department at this show. So I'm on my own. It's just me and the sponsor. But there is no chance in hell I'm shooting this show from this waste treatment plant. Because I know I'm gonna pepper this crowd, and I'm gonna be in big trouble. So, you see any possible changes I can make here?
Golf course.
Yeah, absolutely. This is like gold, man.
Yeah.
There's a golf course right behind the freaking water waste treatment plant. So all we did is we used this cart path here, and we drove the truck down the cart path, and we set up in this area right here. I just bought another 800 feet. Now I'm comfortable shooting my show. But I might get some debris that makes it somewhere around in here in the waste treatment plant, but there ain't no way in hell it's making it over here to the crowd. I'm like 1,600 feet away now.
How's your permit handle that?
What do you mean?
Change location.
Changing your location? HJ and all
There's
that.
no HJ involved in this show.
Oh, okay, that's
There
why.
is a permit for this show, but the HJ never even comes out on the site.
Because like, if you
Snowy.
if you shoot outside your permitted zone and then you have an issue, now how's your insurance covering it?
Right. Well, the answer to that is it will. It will, because you always have you and the HJ always have the authority to make a change for the betterment and the safety of the
Safety,
crowd.
yeah.
So the answer to that question is you're going to be fine in terms of your insurance company. You go, no, you didn't shoot where you're supposed to. You shot in a safer location. There's no way we're paying this claim. That's not going to happen. All right. We're about out of time. I'm sorry for not getting through more of this. I always
You
talk
go a
way
few
too
minutes
much.
over.
You can also move the crowd. This is a very practical thing to do. I'm just going to show this slide and we'll end right here. And I apologize for not getting to the rest of the material. This one is this giant circle. This is like, a roundabout. This is a roundabout on steroids. This thing's like a mile across or something like that. So they have this giant festival here. Well, our shoot site was down here to the south of the festival on the road. Wind, of course, that day coming right out of the south. So the only adjustment I made, because I couldn't move the show at that point, I asked them to normally the cutoff for the crowd was right here. I asked them to move it 150 feet to the north and cut the crowd off there, and I was comfortable with it, and it worked out perfect. There was no issues with debris in the crowd. All right, so that's just a minor adjustment you can make and still get the show shot. I apologize tonight for not getting to everything.
You go over.
I have.
Until they kick us out.
I'll just see if there's anything else real quick that I think is really important. Extreme cold and snow. People ask me about that. Extreme cold does not affect the performance of fireworks.
No.
Absolutely does not. Snow, unless it's a freaking blizzard and it's coming